Hi, I'm Chelsea Vail, host of Whole Heart Crunchy Parenting Podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. I'm also a huge Waldorf education advocate. What is Waldorf? I get asked that question all the time. I always advocate for Waldorf on my podcast, on Instagram, even on my blog. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably see me do the hashtag Waldorf Education, Waldorf Home, or you've probably seen me post a couple of quotes by Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner is the founder of Waldorf Education. He founded Waldorf about 100 years ago when he felt that education needed reform. And ironically, that's where we are today as well. I advocate for Waldorf, not just a Waldorf school, because some of you may not be somewhere where there is a Waldorf school in your area. Most Waldorf schools can be found in Europe, the Northeast coast, California, and then scattered throughout the US and some of the major cities. But if you're in a rural area, for example, you may have heard of Waldorf, but there may not be one in your area. And you may be thinking, what is Waldorf? I get asked this all the time. I also get asked, is Waldorf kind of like Montessori? And I'll tell you, it's almost the exact opposite of Montessori. And some people say it's the same. Well, if you think it's the same, then you probably have not been into a Waldorf school and you may not really understand exactly what Waldorf is. So I'm going to post a video on the differences between Waldorf and Montessori, as well as Reggio Emilia, in a different episode. But today it's just about what is Waldorf. Waldorf, in an early childhood setting, is a non-academic preschool. Now, when you hear non-academic, you might think, okay, that's not for me. I want my children to learn, okay? But the beauty of preschool is that it's prior to formal education, meaning that in those early years being 3 to 6, even before that, we're focusing mostly on parent-child bonding, and we want a home-based setting for young children, even if they're in childcare. In those really early years, we don't really want preschool, okay? So from ages 3 to 6, if you're in Waldorf education, you're going to be in the Waldorf kindergarten. Yes, ages 3 to 6 are kindergarten. Okay, this is a German philosophy, Kinder meaning kid. So kindergarten is ages 3 to 6 and is a non-academic program, but what we're doing in a Waldorf setting is readying the brain and the body and the heart for school, for abstract concepts. If you were to walk into a Waldorf education in an early childhood setting, you're going to see a home-like environment. You're going to see a kitchen. You may see some Waldorf play stands. You may even see peach-toned walls, and there's a reason for that. I'll get to color theory here in a minute. You'll see a lot of role play, brooms, mops, kitchen, rags, basin. You'll see doll houses. You may see even a loft or a tree house. You may see tents or play stands with beautiful colored arches. You'll see lots of watercolor. You'll see art supplies and crayons. You may even see a garden outside or a natural playscape. In a Waldorf early education system, what's being done is we are readying the child for abstract concepts by readying the brain, focusing on building the brain rather than building content. Content is not that important in those early years. In Waldorf, we say head, heart, hands. Hands meaning body. In a Waldorf early childhood setting, what you'll see is lots of handwork. You'll see lots of modeling with beeswax. You'll see lots of knitting. Yes, finger knitting with young children. You'll see lots of watercolor. They do wet on wet and wet felting, okay? Lots of natural materials. All of those things are really important because in Waldorf, they believe that toys must be made from natural materials because there's a enlivened quality to them. They feel better to the child. There's something that is drawing the child to that because this item has a soul to it. It's been alive before. It's usually a wooden toy or a cotton doll or a silk scarf or cape or even a crown made of felt, okay? Those are all natural materials. What you will not see in a Waldorf early childhood setting is any type of technology whatsoever. No battery operated things, no item that they push a button and something else happens. You won't see anything like that. You will also see things that are used for real work, for a real purpose. For example, a grater. Maybe the children are grating carrots or potatoes for their community soup that they may do later that day. They may be chopping up vegetables, or they may be working in the garden. But you'll also see a lot of play, lots and lots of play. And there's a difference in an early childhood setting between playing with the purpose of learning, playing disguised as work, or work disguised as play in some other childhood programs. But in Waldorf, play is just play. What Waldorf believes is that when we foster a child's natural curiosity and imagination is what we give credit to for innovation and creative thinking, problem solving and resourcefulness. All of that starts from imagination, imagining an alternative solution to a problem. So we really foster imagination and creativity in a Waldorf setting. In a Waldorf school beyond the kindergarten years, it is highly academic, but you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it because you're not going to walk into a Waldorf and see children sitting at desks memorizing things. You're never going to see a teacher sitting down with a row of flashcards saying A says ah or B says buh. You're not going to see that. You will see a teacher perhaps dressed like someone from Norse mythology. Maybe they're dressed like a god or a fairy tale, and they're explaining a story with big elaborate movements because the story becomes alive to the child because they have such a wonderful relationship with the teacher. And that teacher-student relationship is what makes the stories come alive. You'll see main lessons. The students usually have a main lesson for a couple of hours in the morning, and they do a main lesson workbook where they actually are creating their own textbook by drawing pictures, very elaborate. They really focus on form drawing with a lot of details. Anyone that goes to Waldorf school is just floored by the abilities of these students because Waldorf focuses on multiple intelligences, so we'll get to that. But in Waldorf education, you'll see children making their own textbooks by drawing the story that they heard, by creating a map with lots and lots of colors and details using chalk or pastels or watercolors or really colored pencils or Stockmar beeswax crayons, which make the most vibrant, beautiful hues. Perhaps they're writing a song or writing a play about the lesson that day. So what they do is they integrate the arts. The arts are integrated through all of the different things. Chemistry may look as though it's an art lesson, but they're learning chemistry and they're applying it through real work, through project-based learning. And then they're applying these skills throughout all of the other areas of their day. There's lots of togetherness in Waldorf. Part of head, heart, hands in Waldorf is togetherness and merging the different aspects of self. Some of us lead with our heads. We're the logical ones. Some of us lead with our hearts. That's definitely me. That's why my business is called Whole Heart. I lead with my heart. Other kids are very body heavy, so they need to be constantly doing things. But when we're around others and we're working together and we're assisting others in a mixed age group, right, where the older ones are helping the younger ones and so on, and we're seeing these people who learn differently than us and we're all working together, we merge head, heart, hands. And in fact, Waldorf is also divided up into 7 areas of human development. They're called epochs or epic, however you want to pronounce it, EPOCHE. And we're divided into 7 units. So in the first 7 years of a child's life, that is the hands realm, and that's the body realm. That's when they're doing a lot of physical things, the beeswax and the knitting and all of that. And then when they get into the heart realm, that's the 7 to 14. So those are your adolescents. You're going to see a lot of fairy tales and legends and folk tales and, like I mentioned before, Norse mythology. Those are in those grades as well. But even the walls. So in an early childhood setting, you're going to see walls that are painted with muted tones. Lazure color theory is all over the walls. And what it does, it almost looks like it's swirly watercolor with the same tone. And that prevents the child from feeling boxed in, but rather it opens up the area and it gives the child a feeling of being free. And then in 7 to 14, that heart realm, the walls may be painted a softer tone of like a blue or a purple to play on that emotion. And everything that those children are learning, which by the way is highly academic, you just wouldn't really know it just by walking by. Everything's going to seem as though it's play and it's social, but what are those children needing in those 7 to 14 years? They're needing to be in touch with their heart. They lead with their emotions and they're very social and very emotional at this stage. So the early stage is the hands, the body realm. Then we move into the heart realm. And then when they're a little bit older in those high school years, they really get into merging the heart and the body and being more logical and more rational and applying things in a much heavier setting. And some of these kids, they go on to be innovators and creators and CEOs, business owners. They're all very innovative, and they're innovative because imagination was fostered from very early stages. Waldorf's kids are usually very artistic. very musical, very well-rounded, very thoughtful. They're problem solvers and just very resourceful overall because of their background. Now, if you were to look at some videos on Waldorf and you want to see what do people hate about Waldorf, it's so funny when I watch some of these other videos or I read a blog about someone who hated Waldorf. It's almost always someone that just sort of lacks depth. I can usually tell looking at them like this is someone that doesn't really lead with their soul. This is someone who really needs to dive into the work of Rudolf Steiner to understand what are these ceremonies about. They're not cults. They're about tradition. They're about reverence. They're about honoring the world around us. And some people say that's a little too hippy-dippy for me or that's too crunchy. But then when you see a product of Waldorf, a child that's been playing outside most of their life, most of their adolescence, they have an appreciation for nature and the world around them, an appreciation for others that you wouldn't quite see in other children. They are usually very well-rounded. They are very outspoken. They're very confident because of their education, their background. The Waldorf education usually has what's called looping, where you have a grades teacher that starts in first grade and follows the children up until 8th grade. And the beauty of that is that that teacher really gets to know the students and is always teaching something new. And so each year the material is fresh and the teacher has new excitement about the material, but also they know the students in their class very, very well. And in fact, one thing that I find so beautiful is when the first graders start with their new teacher. They've had a teacher in the early years that stuck with them, and then they have a teacher in first grade, and they all bring a rose or a different flower, and they gift this flower to the teacher, and the teacher ends up having a big bouquet. All of those kids that she's going to teach are now together in one big group, and they're going to stay together for quite some time, which also allows the teacher an opportunity to get to know the families, and they get to see everything that this child is going through over the years and really connect with them on a really beautiful spiritual level, something that we don't always have in public education. You will also see in Waldorf that there's a focus on spirituality. It's not religious. There's not going to be any one religion taught, but rather all religions taught. And children are encouraged to bring a little piece of self every day when they come in. All children of all races, all abilities, all religion backgrounds, all spiritual beliefs are welcome in a Waldorf setting. And the teacher is specially trained to adapt to the student, never expecting the student to adapt to the teacher. It's just a really beautiful thing. And I did mention that I was going to talk about my background and why Waldorf to me felt like coming home. So my background is child development. I have a bachelor's degree in child development and I have a master's in professional counseling. I spent some time as a teacher in the public school system. I taught kinder for a couple of years, and I taught first grade for a few years, and then I taught third grade. And during this time, I was finishing up my graduate degree in my program to be a play therapist, which I later then turned into being a parenting specialist. But my work in play therapy and sand tray therapy and all of the different workshops and experiences that I had done, I realized that Waldorf is actually using a lot of the methods of play therapy when working with young children, validating their emotions, valuing them who they are, really viewing and teaching the child holistically, and focusing on developing the whole child, and not only just developing the whole child, but really accepting the whole child and loving the whole child. If you are more curious about Waldorf education, please subscribe to this channel because this is the first video of this nature for Waldorf, but I will be doing a lot more videos. I want to teach you how to do wet on wet watercoloring. I want to teach you how to make felt play mats. I want to teach you about all of the different open-ended toys and natural materials, the value of that. I want to teach about laser color therapy and a lot of Steiner's teachings and anthroposophy, which is what Waldorf education was based on over 100 years ago. So if you are interested, please subscribe. And if you'd like to learn more, you can also subscribe to my podcast, Whole Heart Crunchy Parenting. Also, you can check out my blog, wholeheartcrunchyparenting.com, and see what else I'm up to. I would love if you would join Whole Heart. It's a minimal monthly subscription, but it does allow you to access some of my members only content and stay up to date on events and happenings in the Whole Heart world. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this video with anyone you think may be interested in learning about Waldorf education and its anthroposophical roots. Thank you. Be well.